Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more amazing HFY stories. Hit the bell icon to get notified about our latest uploads. In the vast, uncharted regions of the galaxy, where star systems blinked like distant diamonds in a sea of darkness, Captain Aurelia Harris of the starship Ravenclaw was about to encounter something that would change her life forever. The Ravenclaw, a nimble exploration vessel, had been sent on a mission to map out unknown sectors in the Emer Nebula. Her crew, a tight-knit group of seasoned explorers, had grown accustomed to the silence and isolation of deep space. But for Aurelia, a young woman who had been trained to lead and never falter, something felt different about this particular journey. On the evening of the anomaly's detection, a strange energy pulse suddenly flashed across their radar, its origin coming from a nearby, previously uncharted planet. Curious and cautious, Aurelia made the decision to investigate, hoping to find scientific data that would make the mission a success. She wasn't prepared, however, for what awaited her. As the Ravenclaw descended through the clouds of the unfamiliar planet, the crew observed a bizarre formation of ruins below, a long-forgotten city, its architecture unlike anything humanity had encountered. Towering spires of black stone twisted towards the sky, and shimmering lights flared in strange patterns as if beckoning them closer. "Captain, we've got something here," her navigator, Lieutenant Thomason, said over the comms. His voice was thick with uncertainty. "There's something alive down there. Energy readings are spiking." Aurelia stood by the control panel, her fingers hovering over the ship's controls. The ship's AI, an artificial intelligence named Rhea, confirmed the readings, noting the mysterious fluctuations that could indicate life forms nearby. The decision was made quickly. "Prepare a landing party. We're going down." Within minutes, Aurelia and her team descended to the surface in an armored shuttle. As they emerged from the shuttle, the team's breath was visible in the planet's chill air. The towering ruins loomed overhead, casting long shadows across the barren landscape. It felt as though they were stepping into another time, another world entirely. Then from the ruins there was a sound, a soft hum. At first Aurelia thought it was the wind. But the noise grew louder, more distinct, and soon, an enormous figure emerged from the depths of the city. It was a being the likes of which humanity had never encountered, tall, lithe, with pale blue skin that shimmered faintly in the twilight. The alien's hair was a cascade of silver, like moonlight itself, and its eyes were deep, dark pools of endless space. The alien's voice, when it spoke, was melodic, yet heavy with an ancient weight. "I am Nyrath of the Arkale. Welcome to my world, Earthborn." Aurelia froze, stunned into silence. Nyrath's presence was overwhelming. There was something otherworldly about the alien, something that made the captain feel both small and awestruck. Yet, in the deep recesses of her mind, a strange connection stirred. As if the stars themselves had conspired for this meeting. You speak our language?" Aurelia asked, her voice trembling with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Nyrath nodded slowly, the silver strands of their hair shifting like wisps of smoke. "I have studied the ways of your people, Captain Aurelia Harris. I have waited for you." The words struck her like a bolt of lightning and her heart raced. How could this alien, this being from another corner of the universe, know her name? She had never encountered an alien civilization before, let alone one that had been watching humanity from the shadows of the stars. "We have much to discuss," Nyrath continued, his voice steady and calm. "But there are forces at play here, forces that are beyond our control. I need your help." Aurelia felt the weight of his gaze, but instead of fear, there was something else in her chest, a pull, an undeniable bond. She didn't understand it. How could she? She was a human and he was an alien. Yet, at that moment, there was no doubt that this was a fateful meeting, one that would alter the course of her life and the future of the galaxy. Nyrath's gaze softened as he sensed her confusion, and he extended a hand toward her, an offer of trust and partnership. "We are not so different, you and I," Nyrath said, his voice carrying an unspoken promise. "We both have our destinies written in the stars. But together we can forge a new path." Aurelia stood there, torn between the duty of her mission and the inexplicable connection that surged within her. The tension was palpable. She could return to her crew, report her findings, and continue her journey as planned, or she could step into the unknown with this alien, this stranger who seemed to know so much about her. "I'll help you," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos in her heart. "But we need to be careful. If we're going to trust each other, we have to be honest. I don't know what's happening here, but I'll follow you. Together we'll figure this out." Nyrath smiled, a faint, knowing smile that spoke of secrets yet to be revealed. "We will, Captain. Together we will change everything." As they began to walk toward the ruins, the air felt different, charged with the weight of their shared destiny. Aurelia had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in her life, she felt as though she was standing on the precipice of something far greater than any mission she had ever undertaken. The stars above them seemed to watch, twinkling with silent approval. The ruins of the ancient city were vast, sprawling over miles of rocky terrain. Each stone appeared meticulously carved, yet time had taken its toll, and the structures were crumbling in places, like forgotten dreams scattered across the face of the planet. Aurelia felt an overwhelming sense of history as she followed Nyarath through the labyrinth of broken spires and shattered archways, their steps echoing in the eerie silence. There was no doubt in her mind anymore, the connection between them was undeniable. Nyarath moved with an effortless grace, his every motion precise and deliberate, as though he had walked these streets 1,000 times before. Yet, there was something new in his demeanor today, a subtle but powerful energy that she could feel tugging at her, pulling her deeper into the mysteries of the city. As they walked, Nyarath began to speak. This was once the home of my people, the Archael. We were an ancient civilization, one of the first to master the stars. But something happened, something that shattered us. The Great War of the Eclipsing, where the Archael turned on each other, driven by a power we should never have sought. Aurelia glanced at him, her heart heavy with the weight of his words. A war? What kind of power could have done that to your people? Nyarath's expression darkened, his pale blue eyes reflecting a shadow of something ancient and painful. The power of the Voidstone. A substance older than time itself. It is said to contain the secrets of creation, but it is also a corrupting force. It feeds on desire, ambition, on the darkest aspects of the soul. Once it is in your grasp, it does not let go. He stopped in front of a large, broken archway, its edges etched with glowing symbols that flickered weakly in the fading light. This is where it all began, he continued, voice quiet but filled with sorrow. The Voidstone was discovered here, beneath the city. It was meant to be a gift, a way to enhance our understanding of the universe. But it became a curse, leading us to war, destruction, and the eventual fall of my people. Aurelia took a step closer, the weight of his words settling heavily in her chest. And you're the last one left? The last of the Archael? Nyarath nodded slowly. I am. My people perished in the war, leaving only the ruins behind. But the Voidstone remains hidden beneath the surface. And I have kept it safe all these millennia. Until now. Aurelia's mind raced. If the Voidstone is so dangerous, why not just destroy it? Why keep it hidden? It is not so simple, Nyarath said, turning to face her. The Voidstone has a will of its own. Destroying it could unravel everything, destabilize the very fabric of reality itself. But keeping it here, in the place of its origin, is equally dangerous. There are those who would seek it out, who would use it to rewrite the universe in their own image. Aurelia felt the weight of his gaze, as if he were searching her soul for understanding. And you want my help to stop them? Yes, Nyarath said, his voice steady. You see, there are others, powerful factions, both human and alien, who have learned of the Voidstone's existence. They believe that by harnessing its power they can control the galaxy. But their desire for control will destroy everything. Aurelia felt a surge of determination, the familiar pull of duty igniting within her. She had seen the dangers of unchecked power before. The universe was full of greedy, power-hungry empires, both human and alien. She couldn't let the Voidstone fall into the wrong hands. But there was more at stake here than just the galaxy's fate. Then we need to secure it, she said firmly. We can't let anyone get their hands on it. Nyarath's eyes softened, and for a moment, Aurelia thought she saw something else in his gaze, something that went beyond the burden of their mission. But before she could dwell on it, a low rumble echoed from deep within the ruins, sending a shiver down her spine. Trouble, Nyarath muttered, his voice tense. They found us. Without another word, he grabbed Aurelia's hand, pulling her toward the heart of the city. The ground beneath them trembled as strange mechanical sounds echoed through the broken streets, growing louder with every passing second. Aurelia's heart raced as they ran, Nyarath's grip tight around her wrist, guiding her through the ruins with the precision of someone who knew this place like the back of their hand. The air was thick with the scent of ozone, the energy field from the Voidstone pulsing beneath the surface like a heartbeat. They reached a massive stone doorway, its surface covered in more glowing symbols, this time radiating with a bright blue light. Nyarath quickly input a series of complex gestures into the door's control panel, and with a low hiss, it slid open, revealing a hidden chamber beyond. Inside, the Void Stone lay at the center of a vast, circular altar, its surface shimmering with an eerie, otherworldly light. The stone was massive, easily the size of a small shuttle, and it radiated an immense energy that made Aurelia's skin tingle. She could feel it even from the doorway, a presence, a force that was both beautiful and terrifying. Nyrath released her hand and approached the altar, his movements reverent. This is it. The Void Stone. It is not just a weapon, it is a key. A key to the entire universe. Aurelia stepped closer, her eyes locked on the stone, her mind grappling with the weight of what it represented. And if we don't stop it? Nyrath turned toward her, his expression grim. If we don't stop it, the galaxy will be torn apart. And not just the galaxy, the very fabric of reality itself. The Void Stone can unmake everything. Aurelia's mind raced. She knew they couldn't let this power fall into the wrong hands. But just as the words formed on her lips, a sudden explosion rocked the ground beneath them, and the chamber door slammed shut with a violent force. They were not alone. The chamber shook violently as the explosion reverberated through the stone walls, and the ground beneath Aurelia's feet cracked, sending small rocks tumbling down into the abyss. Her heart pounded in her chest as she stumbled, grabbing onto a nearby pillar for support. Nyrath, calm as ever, reached out to steady her with a firm grip. "Stay close," he said urgently, his voice cutting through the chaos. "They're here." Aurelia's mind raced. The Void Stone was within reach, but now danger was closing in from all sides. She could hear the sounds of armored footsteps echoing in the corridors beyond the chamber, their movements deliberate, methodical. There was no mistaking it. Someone was coming for the Void Stone. "Who are they?" Aurelia asked, her hand instinctively reaching for the blaster at her side. "Railcon," Nyrath replied through gritted teeth. "A mercenary faction, ruthless, driven only by profit and power. They've been hunting for the Void Stone for years. They've finally tracked it down and they won't stop until they claim it." Aurelia's grip on her weapon tightened. She had faced mercenaries before, but these were no ordinary foes. The Railcon were notorious for their advanced technology and their brutal efficiency. They were known across the galaxy for their unrelenting nature, and if they were after the Void Stone, the stakes had just escalated exponentially. Aurelia scanned the room, her mind working quickly. The chamber they were in was massive, the altar in the center surrounded by towering stone columns. There were only two entrances, one behind them, now sealed shut by the explosion, and another on the far side of the chamber, which was already starting to rumble as the Railcon forces breached the inner sanctum. "We need to move," she said, eyes locked on Nyrath. "If we're going to stop them, we have to secure the Void Stone and get out of here." Nyrath nodded grimly. "I will create a diversion. You take the Void Stone and get it to safety." Before Aurelia could respond, he turned swiftly, his pale blue skin glowing faintly as he channeled his energy. He approached the altar, his eyes locking onto the Void Stone, his expression one of deep concentration. Aurelia watched, both amazed and apprehensive, as Nyrath seemed to draw power from the stone itself. His silver hair shimmered as if reacting to the energy pulsing from the Void Stone. The very air in the chamber crackled with static, and the symbols on the walls flared to life, bathing the room in an otherworldly glow. "You should go now," Nyrath said without turning. "I will hold them off." But Aurelia hesitated, her eyes fixed on him. She couldn't just leave him to face the Railcon alone, not after everything they had shared, not after the bond that had already begun to form between them. But Nyrath was insistent, his expression hardening as he focused more intensely on the Void Stone. "I will be fine," he said softly, though his voice carried a weight of finality. "There is much you do not understand yet, Captain. But you have a role to play. You must secure the Void Stone. Do not let them take it." Aurelia's heart clenched. She could sense that Nyrath was hiding something from her, but there was no time to question him further. The Railcon were closing in and she had to act fast. With one last look at him, Aurelia sprinted toward the altar, reaching out to touch the surface of the Void Stone. The moment her fingers brushed against it, a surge of energy coursed through her, so intense that it nearly knocked her off her feet. The power of the stone was overwhelming, yet somehow she felt an odd sense of familiarity with it, as though it was calling to her, recognizing her in a way that no one else could. She gasped, stepping back from the altar as the Void Stone pulsed in response to her touch. The stone's light brightened, almost blinding, but Aurelia managed to steady herself. She could feel the force of it now, a deep, resonating hum that seemed to vibrate in her very bones. Behind her, the chamber's entrance began to buckle as the Railcon forces made their way through. There was no more time for hesitation. She grasped the void stone with both hands, its weight heavy and unnerving in her palms. Despite its immense power, there was an unsettling feeling in the air, as though the stone itself was both alive and aware. The moment she touched it, the chamber seemed to shift. The walls seemed to breathe, and Aurelia could hear a whisper, faint but unmistakable, in the back of her mind. Her vision blurred for a brief second, and for just an instant she could see flashes of distant stars, galaxies and alien landscapes. It was as if the void stone was showing her the entire universe, revealing its vastness and secrets in an overwhelming flood. She blinked, shaking her head to clear the strange visions. She had to focus. The railcon were almost here. With the void stone secured, she turned and bolted toward the far exit, but just as she reached it, a figure stepped into her path. Tall, imposing and clad in dark armor, the railcon leader stood before her, blocking her way. "You cannot escape, human," the leader said in a deep, guttural voice, his eyes glowing with malice. "The void stone belongs to us. Give it to me now and we may let you live." Aurelia's heart raced as she raised her blaster, aiming it squarely at the mercenary. "Not going to happen." The leader smirked, drawing a weapon from his side, a sleek, high-tech energy blade that crackled with dangerous energy. "Then you will die for it." Before Aurelia could react, the railcon leader lunged at her, the blade slicing through the air with deadly precision. She barely managed to dodge, the edge of the blade grazing her shoulder and sending a sharp wave of pain through her body. The force of the strike sent her crashing against the wall, her grip on the void stone faltering. "No!" she cried out, pushing herself to her feet, determination flooding her veins. She couldn't let this be the end. The universe's future depended on her. But then, out of nowhere, a bolt of energy struck the railcon leader square in the chest, sending him sprawling back. Nyareth, his eyes glowing brighter than ever, stood at the far end of the chamber, his hand outstretched, his energy crackling in the air around him. "Leave her alone," Nyareth said coldly, his voice imbued with a power that sent a ripple through the room. The railcon leader roared in fury, charging at Nyareth with reckless abandon. But Aurelia, her heart pounding, gathered her strength and charged at the mercenary as well, her blaster raised and ready. It was now or never. The chamber was filled with a storm of energy as the railcon leader charged at Nyareth, his energy blade crackling with violent intensity. But Nyareth remained calm, his pale blue skin glowing brighter as he stood his ground, his focus unwavering. Aurelia, still reeling from the impact against the wall, scrambled to her feet and steadied her blaster, her heart racing in her chest. She couldn't let Nyareth face these mercenaries alone, not after everything they had been through together. The railcon leader was fast, a blur of movement as he closed the distance between himself and Nyareth, his blade aiming for the alien's chest. But just as the strike came down, Nyareth moved with a fluidity that was almost unnatural, sidestepping the attack with an effortless grace that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Nyareth's outstretched hand crackled with energy as he drew upon the Voidstone's power, and with a sudden flick of his wrist, a burst of force slammed into the railcon leader, sending him tumbling backward. The mercenary hit the ground hard, his blade skittering across the stone floor. Aurelia took advantage of the momentary distraction, rushing forward with blaster raised. She fired a series of shots, the energy bolts striking the railcon leader's armor with a resounding impact. But the mercenary's armor was durable, and he only staggered for a moment before regaining his footing, his eyes blazing with fury. "You will pay for that," the leader snarled, his voice a guttural growl. But before he could make a move, Nyareth acted. The alien's hands raised in a smooth, deliberate motion, and the air around him shimmered. A wave of telekinetic force exploded outward, sending the railcon leader sprawling to the ground once again. "Stay down," Nyareth said coldly, his voice carrying a deep, resonating authority that was impossible to ignore. Aurelia, momentarily awestruck by Nyareth's display of power, quickly regained her focus. She glanced at the Voidstone, still clutched tightly in her hands. They couldn't afford to waste any time. She had to get it to safety or they would all be doomed. But before she could take another step, the rest of the railcon mercenaries stormed into the chamber, weapons drawn and ready for battle. A small army of them now stood between her and any chance of escape, their armor gleaming under the eerie light of the chamber. Aurelia's stomach tightened. She hadn't expected so many to be this close. "Captain?" Nyareth shouted, his voice sharp with urgency. "Move quickly. I'll hold them off." Aurelia didn't need to be told twice. She turned and bolted for the far exit, her boots pounding against the stone floor as she pushed herself harder than she ever had before. Every fiber of her being screamed to stay and help Nyareth, but he had made it clear, she had to secure the Void Stone. She trusted him. She had to. As she ran, she heard the sounds of blaster fire erupt behind her, followed by the loud crackle of energy blasts and the unmistakable hum of Nyareth's powers in action. She didn't look back, but the sounds told her everything she needed to know. He was holding his own, buying her the time she needed. Aurelia reached the exit, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The massive door slid open with a hiss, revealing a long hallway that twisted into the depths of the ruins. She didn't hesitate. She dashed forward, clutching the Void Stone against her chest, her mind racing. There had to be a way out of this, a way to escape, but the ancient city was vast, and every turn seemed to lead to more danger. The sound of pursuit grew louder behind her, and Aurelia's heart pounded in her ears. She couldn't outrun them forever. She needed a plan, a way to fight back. But her options were limited. Her blaster was useful, but it wasn't enough against an entire mercenary force. Then she remembered something Nyareth had said earlier. The Void Stone was more than just a weapon. It was a key. A key to the entire universe. Could it be the key to her escape as well? Aurelia glanced down at the Void Stone in her hands. It pulsed with a strange, familiar energy, its surface glowing brighter as she held it. There was something in the air, a subtle shift that made her feel as though the stone was alive. It was responding to her. Touch her thoughts. She could feel its presence in her mind, a silent whisper urging her forward. She didn't understand it, not completely, but she knew one thing for certain. The Void Stone was their only hope. Without thinking, she turned a sharp corner, her boots echoing in the narrow hallway. Ahead, she saw an old control panel, half destroyed and covered in debris, but still functional. It was worth a shot. She rushed toward it, her fingers trembling as she placed the Void Stone on the surface of the panel. The moment the stone made contact, the room trembled again, this time more violently. The walls seemed to hum with energy, and Aurelia felt a strange tugging sensation, as though the very fabric of reality was bending. The air around her grew thick with an electric charge, and the symbols on the control panel flickered to life, glowing with an otherworldly light. She didn't have time to second-guess herself. With a single thought, she activated the panel. A blinding flash of light enveloped the room, and for a moment Aurelia couldn't see anything, only a vast expanse of white, as though she had been transported into another dimension. Her entire body felt weightless, suspended in a place that defied logic, time, and space. But just as suddenly as it began, the light faded, and Aurelia found herself back in the crumbling ruins. The hallway was no longer the same. She was standing in a massive open space, a chamber unlike anything she had seen before. The walls were lined with strange alien artifacts, their designs intricate and beautiful. The Void Stone had activated something, perhaps a hidden sanctuary, a secret passage, or a place of power. Aurelia stood in stunned silence, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. How had she gotten here? Where was here? But there was no time for answers. The sound of reconnaissance footsteps echoed from the hallway she had just come from. They were getting closer. Aurelia took a deep breath, her fingers tightening around the Void Stone. She didn't know what she had just triggered, but she knew one thing for certain: it was her only chance. The railcon were almost upon her. It was time to make her move. Aurelia's heart hammered in her chest as the railcon mercenaries neared. She didn't have time to figure out where she was, only how to get out. The vast chamber before her was an enigma, its strange artifacts glowing softly in the dim light, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The air was thick with the weight of the unknown, and the Void Stone in her hands seemed to hum with anticipation. She had no choice but to trust that the Void Stone had brought her here for a reason. If it was truly a key to something larger, something beyond her understanding, then perhaps it could offer the answers she needed. And more importantly, perhaps it would be her way out. Behind her, the footsteps of the railcon mercenaries grew louder. They were closing in, and from the sounds of it, there were too many of them for her to take on alone. She had to find another way to escape before they found her. Aurelia's eyes darted across the chamber. The walls were covered in strange, shifting patterns, symbols that seemed to move and pulse with a life of their own. Some glowed with a soft blue light, while others flickered in shades of red and gold. It was as though the very stone was alive, resonating with the power of the Void Stone itself. In the center of the room, there was a raised platform at the top of which sat a massive, intricate structure, an archway made of the same glowing stone. The arch radiated with an energy so intense that Aurelia could feel it even from across the room. The Void Stone hummed in her hands, reacting to the archway as if calling to it. With no time to waste, Aurelia made her decision. She ran toward the arch, her footsteps echoing through the chamber. She could hear the railcon yelling as they approached, their voices growing closer with every passing second. She reached the archway and hesitated for only a moment. The Voidstone's energy was palpable now, swirling in the air around her like a magnetic force. She could feel it pulling her forward, urging her to pass through the arch, to unlock whatever secrets lay on the other side. She didn't know how, but she felt that this was the only way to escape. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, her body trembling as she moved closer to the arch. As she passed beneath its glowing frame, the energy of the Voidstone flared, and for a moment, the world around her seemed to warp and distort. The chamber faded, replaced by a bright, blinding light. Aurelia gasped, her vision going white as a rush of energy enveloped her. The Voidstone pulsed with unimaginable force, and her body felt as if it were being torn apart and remade. She felt weightless, suspended in some otherworldly space, as though time itself had fractured around her. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the light faded, and Aurelia found herself standing in a new place. It was quiet here. The air was still and cold, and the landscape before her was stark and alien. She stood on the edge of a cliff overlooking a vast expanse of swirling clouds, the horizon a blur of distant stars. It was as if she had stepped out of one world and into another entirely. The Voidstone's hum had died down, but its presence still thrummed in the back of her mind. She looked around, trying to make sense of where she had landed. There was nothing familiar about this place, no sign of the railcon, no sign of Nyarath. The chamber, the ruins, the city, everything was gone. She was completely alone. Her heart pounded as she tried to steady her breath. She had no idea where she was or how to get back. Had she somehow crossed into another dimension? Had the Voidstone sent her to some hidden pocket of the universe? But there was no time to dwell on the mystery. The railcon were still pursuing her, and she could already hear the faint sound of their footsteps as they crossed the threshold of the arch. If they followed her through, they would be even more dangerous here, wherever here was. Aurelia looked around, searching for any sign of shelter, anything that might offer a chance to regroup. Her eyes fell on a distant structure, an imposing building in the distance. It looked ancient, weathered by time, but it was intact. Perhaps it could offer some answers, or at least some temporary refuge. She took a deep breath, steadied her grip on the Voidstone, and began to move toward it. Her mind was racing with questions, but one thing was certain. She had to survive long enough to figure out what had happened and how to stop the railcon from claiming the Voidstone. The trek across the alien landscape was longer than Aurelia had expected. The ground beneath her feet was uneven, jagged, and covered in strange plants and formations she had never seen before. The air felt thinner here, and her breathing was shallow as she pushed on toward the distant structure. The sky above her was a swirl of colors, dark clouds swirling in intricate patterns, the stars visible even during the daylight hours. As she neared the structure, she could see that it was more than just a building. It was a complex, a sprawling series of interconnected stone pathways and towering spires. The architecture was unlike anything she had encountered in her travels. There were no obvious doors or windows, but strange symbols adorned the walls, glowing faintly as she approached. Aurelia felt the Voidstone tugging at her, its energy shifting with the strange architecture. She couldn't help but feel a sense of recognition, as if she had seen this place before, or perhaps as if it were calling her. She stepped forward, drawn to a set of large, ancient doors at the base of the structure. The doors, made of a dark, metallic substance that shimmered in the dim light, creaked open at her approach, revealing a vast, circular chamber inside. The air was cool, and the space was filled with the hum of ancient energy, much like the Voidstone. At the center of the room was a large pedestal, and upon it lay an object, a relic, perhaps, that pulsed with energy. The moment Aurelia stepped inside, she could feel it, like a magnetic force pulling her closer. She had no idea what it was, but she could sense that it was somehow tied to the Voidstone. And that's when she heard it. A voice. It was soft at first, barely audible, but it grew louder as she approached the pedestal. "You have arrived." The voice was neither male nor female, but filled with an ancient, timeless power. It was neither comforting nor threatening, just knowing. Aurelia froze, her pulse quickening as the voice reverberated in her mind. Aurelia stood frozen in the vast chamber, her breath shallow, her heart hammering in her chest. The voice echoed in her mind again, its presence heavy and all-encompassing. It felt as though the words weren't just spoken, they were felt, reverberating deep within her, as if they were awakening something that had been dormant inside her all along. "You have arrived." Her grip tightened around the Voidstone, and she glanced at the pedestal in the center of the room. The mysterious object resting upon it seemed to be calling to her, drawing her forward with an undeniable pull. It radiated power, a familiar energy that made her skin tingle and her instincts flare with caution. Whatever this place was, it was old, ancient even, and she couldn't shake the feeling that it had been waiting for her. Swallowing hard, Aurelia stepped forward cautiously, her boots clicking softly against the stone floor as she approached the pedestal. The voice, deep, resonant, and timeless, spoke again, though its source remained hidden in the shadows. "The Void Stone belongs to you now, human?" Aurelia's breath hitched. The Void Stone? Belonged to her? It was a weapon, an artifact of unimaginable power, and yet somehow, it felt like more than that. It was as though the stone and she were connected, a bond that went deeper than mere chance. She had touched it earlier and it had responded. It was as if the Void Stone had recognized her, chosen her. But why? She reached the pedestal, her eyes never leaving the object. It seemed to hum louder now, the energy swirling around her. It beckoned her, calling her to claim it fully. But the question lingered in her mind: what would happen when she did? Would she become a pawn in a galactic power struggle, or was she something more, something the Void Stone had chosen for a reason? Before she could reach out to touch it, the voice spoke again, its tone shifting to something softer, more contemplative. "You are not what you seem, Captain Aurelia of Earth." The words sent a chill through her and she stumbled slightly, her mind racing. "How does it know my name?" She didn't answer aloud, but the voice seemed to hear her thoughts as it continued. "The path you walk is one that intertwines with the fabric of the universe. You are the key as much as the Void Stone itself. Your fate and the fate of this galaxy are bound by forces older than you can imagine." Aurelia's mind was spinning. The idea that her arrival here, in this strange realm, was part of something far greater than she could understand was both thrilling and terrifying. The Void Stone, whatever it was, had chosen her for a reason. But what was that reason? Why her? The voice paused for a moment before answering her unspoken question. "You are the last of your kind to bear the light of creation, human. The Void Stone is not merely a weapon. It is a key to a greater power, a power that can either save or doom everything. It chose you not for your strength but for the courage that lies within you. A courage that will either bind the galaxy together, or tear it apart." Aurelia felt as if the ground had shifted beneath her. The last of my kind? She wasn't sure what that meant, but the weight of it hung heavily in the air. She had always known that humanity was just one species in a vast, ever-expanding universe, but to think that she, of all people, could hold such significance. Her thoughts were interrupted as the pedestal before her began to glow brighter, the light intensifying with every passing second. The object atop it, now illuminated by the Void Stone's energy, began to stir, its form becoming clearer. It wasn't just a relic, it was a holographic map, stretching across the entire surface of the pedestal. The map wasn't just of planets or stars. It depicted a web of interconnected systems, galaxies and ancient cosmic structures, all tied together by glowing lines that seemed to pulse with energy. Aurelia's eyes widened in disbelief. She had seen star maps before, but nothing like this. This was far beyond any chart of the galaxy she had ever encountered. The map zoomed in, focusing on a cluster of stars at the edge of the known galaxy. Aurelia's heart skipped a beat as she recognized the familiar star system of Earth, her home. But it was different now, marked by a vast and growing dark spot, a void, a gap in the cosmic web that spread outward like a growing infection. The map flickered, showing a timeline of some kind, a decay spreading from the void, devouring the stars and systems around it. She gasped, her breath catching in her throat. "This is your true mission," the voice intoned. "You must stop the black void before it consumes all life. The Void Stone can stop it, but only in the hands of one who is worthy." Her hands shook as she reached out, her fingers grazing the edge of the map. The room around her seemed to pulse, the walls vibrating with the weight of the knowledge she was absorbing. The Black Void, the name echoed in her mind like a prophecy, a warning. The Black Void wasn't just a force of destruction. It was a force of nothingness, an entity that consumed everything in its path, stars, planets, civilizations, until all that was left was the void itself. It was an ancient terror, older than the universe itself, and it was returning. And it had to be stopped. But the more Aurelia looked at the map, the more she realized something. She wasn't just standing in front of a map. She was standing in front of the future, her future, and the future of every living being in the galaxy. She could feel the weight of it, the responsibility pressing down on her, suffocating her. The voice spoke again, its tone softer this time, almost kind. You have the power to change the course of history, Captain Aurelia. You are more than just a soldier. You are a protector of the light. The Void Stone chose you because you possess the one thing that can defeat the Black Void. Hope? Aurelia swallowed hard, her pulse quickening. Hope. It was a strange word to hear in the face of such devastation. But as she looked at the glowing map, at the lines that connected the stars and systems, she realized what the voice meant. She wasn't alone. The Void Stone had chosen her, but it wasn't just her strength or her courage that mattered. It was her ability to inspire hope, to fight for the future no matter the odds. The room fell silent, the weight of her choices pressing in. The Railcon were still out there hunting for her, but in this moment it didn't matter. Aurelia understood what she had to do. She wasn't just carrying the Void Stone. She was carrying the future of the galaxy itself. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more exciting HFY stories. Your support means the world to us. And make sure to tap the bell icon so you never miss an update. Stay tuned for our next adventure, and until then, keep exploring the stars. See you in the next video.